Alrighty, now that we have our growing dividend highlight done, we'll take a look at implementing the function for determining consistent dividends. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove all these console logs, and I'm going to get started on the consistent dividends, and we're also going to accept the dividends here. And what we want to do is we want to get the current year. So let's use our get current year function. Make sure we import that from our helpers file. And let's clean up our imports. Now, what I want to do in order to figure out whether or not a stock has given out consistent returns is I want to take the get current year and I want to go 20 years back, and I want to check whether or not the stock has given out dividend or the frequency the stock has given out dividends in that time period. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an array out of the dividend keys like we did in the other function. And then if that key is between the current year and 20 years back in time, then we'll add that key to a set. And at the end of our function, we'll check whether or not how large the set is. So we'll do something like set.length, and we'll compare that to a threshold. So let's say that we want the threshold to be 75%. So that means that in 20 years, we'll have to have a minimum of 15 dividend payouts in order for it to be considered consistent. So let's go ahead and see if we can implement that. So we have the year here, and we want to take the dividends and get an array of keys. So we'll say const dividend keys equals object dot keys dividends, and then we'll say const comparison, or let's say upper year boundary, and we'll say lower year boundary, and we'll just subtract 20 from the upper year boundary. So now I'm going to have to, so if we for each and take each item here and we'll just log that out, we'll see something interesting. And we'll also just log out our upper year boundary and lower year boundary to make sure that we have the correct values. Let's see, and we'll go to our browser and open the DevTools. Alright, so here's our upper year boundary 2020, and our lower year boundary is 2000. And we have all of the values here, but the type of these values I'm pretty sure is a string. So let's go and see type of item. That's a string. So we need to, in order to do math with these keys, we need to convert them to numbers. And a quick way to do that is just to map over each item, and then we'll return each item with a plus in front of it. like that. And now we can for each at the end here, and we'll should be able to see that we have an array of numbers. Alright, so now we have numbers here. So now we can actually use that to make some sort of comparison. And what we'll do is for each item, we are going to check if item is greater than or equal to upper boundary and item is less than or equal to lower boundary. Then we are going to add this item to a set, and we're going to say results equals new set. And then we will do result dot let's go and see the documentation here. We want to do set dot add. And we want to add the item. And let's go ahead and console log the results. And we can remove this. Alright, so that didn't work as we intended it to, so I guess we're never getting in here. Alright. So let's see if our item is and it's less than. Alright, so less than or equal to upper year boundary, of course, and greater than or equal to lower year boundary is the correct check here. So now we have a set with 6 values. Perfect. And what we want to do is we want to say that let's create a threshold variable, and the threshold is going to be 15, and we'll say if the results.length is greater than or equal to the threshold, then we'll return this consistent dividends object. And we want to swap out this text with the actual amount. So we'll say results.length in here. And if it doesn't meet or match the threshold, we're going to say inconsistent dividends and has only paid out. All right. Perfect. So now, if we go ahead and go back to our browser, we get this. All right, so we get undefined. So let's go ahead and, all right, so we need to use the size property because this isn't an array. So even though they're quite similar, a set is different in that it only holds unique values and the API to interact with it is slightly different. So if you're in doubt, just check the documentation. But in this case, we need to use size instead of length. So yeah, let's go back and check again. And so now we get that we have only paid out dividends in 6 out of 20 years. So let's go ahead and go back and go to our data set, and we'll actually go ahead and just add by hand a few more entries here. All right, and we'll go back, and now you can see that we have consistently paid out dividends in 17 out of 20 years. And if we go to another stock, we can see that we only paid out dividends in 6 out of 20 years in this one. And if we go and check our data set, we see that makes sense, that's correct according to our data. And obviously we need to add icons for these highlights or negative highlights here, but we haven't gotten that far. So right now we are almost done with the highlights. We only need to add one more function, which is the determine ranking function, and we'll handle that one in the next video. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you there.